oppressed farmers due to century-old landlessness, deprived children, exploited indigenous people, reinforced by illiteracy, impoverished Filipinos, perpetuated by unjust government policies and corrupt practices. More than 300 agrarian revolts spawned by a suffering society. In this tumultuous social environment, the Project Development Institute, or PDI, was born. PDI was conceived with a vision: building self-reliant communities through people's initiatives.
Sa kanyang paglipad, siya'y tuwang-tuwa at kanyang ipinagbunyi ang kanyang paglaya.
This was 1990, the same year a killer earthquake hit the Cordillera region. It was a baptism of fire for the fledgling PDI. The earthquake did not only flatten the buildings in Baguio City, but also eroded many upland farms, dislocating thousands of Igorot farmers. PDI helped the earthquake victims with a resettlement program in Laur, Nueva Ecija. As if PDI's baptism of fire was not feverish enough, a more catastrophic calamity hit the Central Luzon the following year. It was the devastating eruption of Mount Pinatubo in June 1991. PDI, a very young NGO at that time, worked hard, even beyond its resources. It focused on the resettlement of farmer victims, including the Aita farmers from Mount Pinatubo. The resettlement program of PDI resulted in the creation of fully functional communities. One such village is Pangulingan, situated in the town of Palawig, Zambales. Pangulingan rose from the rocks and ashes of Mount Pinatubo. It's now a thriving community for hundreds of Mount Pinatubo victims. The recognition of PDI's sacrifices and success came in the year 2000, when its resettlement program was showcased at the World Exposition in Hanover, Germany. But the most treasured recognition, according to PDI, was when government agencies and other non-government organizations adopted PDI's resettlement programs and its pioneering concept, building agrarian reform communities through people-led initiative. But PDI does not sit on its laurels. After 5 years of resettlement work, PDI is now ready to expand and take on the more complex issue of settling with the DAR the peasants' struggle to own the highly contentious private agricultural lands owned by the influential and political Filipino elite. Considering its meager resources, can PDI help in realizing the dreams of millions of landless farmers? Armed only with dedication, sincerity, sympathetic friends, and supportive funding agencies, PDI took up the challenge.
Maliliit na mga langgam, pila-pilang naglaraan, malaman lang nagbabangga.
Ang problema talaga natin, ang isang malinaw na samahan. Samahan ng pinatin na ito kayo. Balik tayo sa
PDI started to build and strengthen people's organizations, or POs, with a development framework of implementing genuine agrarian reform through land tenure improvement, accompanied by economic support service with social infrastructure building. It was a bottoms-up development strategy compared to the government's trickle-down concept of development. Training and education, based on PDI's experience, should cut across all phases of development work to transform the peasant from being victims of exploitation to principled peasant leaders. The economic support services is a critical component to achieve sustainable, self-reliant peasant communities. Hog raising, goat raising, stick making, sari-sari store, pineapple candy making, dress making, paper making, and meat processing. After successful land tenure improvements and production processes, the peasants and the indigenous people are now confronted with market realities. Their lack of education hampers their effectivity in trading and marketing their produce. Most of the farmer beneficiaries have not undergone formal education. They did not know how to read and write. They did not know how to add and subtract. These are basic skills needed to run a small business. Showing flexibility and patience to learn from experience, PDI launched a literacy campaign called NFE, or Non-Formal Education. In coordination with the Department of Education, or DepEd, PDI started a literacy program covering all its program areas. After applying the right solutions to the problems of survival and literacy, PDI and the People's Organization are now ready to advance their agrarian reform struggle. With the assistance of PDI, research and documentation was launched. Farmers' organizations were vigorously in search for lands which can be placed under the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program, or CARP. In the province of Nueva Ecija, the Igorots, who were victims of the 1990 earthquake, made deeper research on their claim to Fourth Magsaysay's 3,100 hectares of land. In Magalang, Pampanga, PDI identified 61 hectares owned by Mr. Feliciano Tino, which could be placed under CARP. Furthermore, in Angeles, Pampanga, another 400 hectares owned by the families of Lutgarda Torres and Elena Miller were discovered. These could also be placed under CARP. In Tarlac, PDI and the People's Organization had a hard time researching on the vast land holdings of the powerful Cojuangco family. In Bulacan, PDI identified 50 hectares of carpable land owned by a corporation involved in housing development.
Ngayon napunta sa Ayala, Bidyar, tayo ng dalawa. Ngayon Bangko Sentral na. Ang question namin dyan is the Bangko Sentral is an entity to handle such transaction.
In Bataan, the ITAS started to focus their activities on how to regain their 2,000-hectare ancestral land taken over by the Bataan Technology Park Incorporated. In Palawan, the Tagban was claimed over 2,000 hectares of ancestral lands was stalled because of the missing documents submitted 2 years ago to NCIP, or the National Commission for the Indigenous People, with the help of PDI. They started a renewed effort to locate the historic documents. NMGL, or the Nagkakaisang Magsasaka sa Gitnang Luzon, was at the forefront of the Agrarian Reform Initiative. But many farmers were skeptical. Dreaming of owning the land we till will forever remain a dream, said one farmer. PDI, NMGL, and the ITAS of Zambales, as a result of their diligent research work, discovered an idle 61-hectare land known as Garcia Estate. It could be appropriated under the government's Agrarian Reform Program. They asked the mayor of Botolan and the provincial office of DAR for assistance. Will the mayor and the DAR, whose officials were known to be easily corrupted by landlords, help PDI and the struggling farmers? As expected, the owner of the Garcia estate vehemently opposed the appropriation under CARP. Can the farmer muster enough resources to go against the moneyed owners of Garcia estate? It seemed that the naysayers of the PDI farmer struggle to own a land were right. Ever patient and courageous, PDI again studied the situation. It found out the farmers were still not prepared in negotiating their demands at all levels. Farmers still hesitated, voicing out the real views while talking with government officials. They were still afraid to assert their right in front of their landlords. To overcome this situation, PDI launched a series of leadership trainings and seminars.
So nung nakilala namin ang PDI mga taong 2001, hanggang mahubog kami sa pagbibigay nila ng seminars, ganun, mga leadership training, tapos kung paano bumuo ng isang organisasyon na may lakas ka mula dito sa baba hanggang paakyat. Napakalaking bagay ang naituro sa amin hanggang magkaroon kami ng rehistradong organisasyon na siyang nasasaklaw ngayon ng NMGL Zambales at saka dito sa Central Luzon. So yun ang isang bagay na naitulong ng PDI sa amin.
After undergoing intensive trainings, the farmers were able to plan bolder and more creative forms of struggle, but still within the legal framework. In Zambales, they entered and occupied the 64-hectare Garcia estate. This act prompted DAR to put the issue of the Garcia estate on its front burner. It was a bold and risky move, directly challenging the owner of the Garcia estate. Will Garcia lawyers call on the military to forcibly drive the farmers out of the Garcia estate? While in the middle of helping the people's organizations in their struggle to own land, PDI also launched a scholarship program. The PDI education program has radically changed the interpersonal communication skills of the indigenous people and farmers. It has improved their exchange rights in dialogue with market players. It has also improved their coping abilities for survival and development. But for PDI, it is a visionary program, knowing that education is a universal input to an individual and the society in general. PDI also hopes that the scholars, after graduation, would also help PDI as staff in their local communities.
Siguro kung hindi sa pag-aaral, wala rin akong hindi rin ako makaka-asenso.
In cases where government agencies gives PDI and the farmers the usual runaround, and in some cases make unfair judgments in favor of the landowners, PDI resorts to the so-called parliament of the streets or pressure politics. There are also times when people's organizations confront the landlord directly. In many cases, PDI and the people's organizations resort to dialogues. PDI's experience shows that dialogues and the PDI's pressure tactics at the national level bring more results. In Aurora Province, a newly opened program area of PDI, the NFE program was immediately implemented among the Dumagat indigenous people. The struggle to claim the ancestral lands of the Dumagat is still at the stage of documentation and research. In addition, the Dumagats are running out of time. Their ancestral land is being ravaged by illegal loggers and Kaingin dwellers. After more than a decade, the struggle of PDI and its POs is now starting to bear fruits. The NMGL was founded in 2001, a regional farmers organization covering all provinces of Central Luzon. A women's regional organization was also formed. The ESS, particularly hog racing, has already dispersed thousands of hogs, benefiting more than 500 families. Some scholars, after graduation, became PDI staff. Tato, Ferdi, and Azenith are now staff of PDI. The Tagbanwas of Palawan were able to recover their missing documents. The PDI NFE program garnered top honors in a DepEd-sponsored national competition. The provincial offices of PDI are becoming bigger and better compared to its humble beginnings. One notable experience was the struggle of the farmers on a Tino property in Tarlac. The People's Organization hold on to determination, courage, and unity to finally succeed.
Wala naman kaming kaso para harangin yun. Kami o, lahat doon yung diretsyo na. Yung namin, nandun yung bukid namin, doon tayo mag-usap.
Sergeant David. Karat pa lang tayo. Parang gano'n. Actual.
Paano estimated? Eh, may sukat yan eh. Kaya nga merong sukat eh.
Sino nagsukat yan? Sino nagsukat yan?
Ang mga magsasaka.
Industrial na yon. Kung before June 15, 1988, na-reclassify, doon hindi pwedeng i-cover. Pero after June 15, 1988,
ang mga miyembro ng NNGL at saka miyembro ng iba sa Comprehensive Organic Reform Program, binabati ko kayong lahat.
Another success story was the appropriation of the Hacienda Garcia in Botolan. The hacienda was renamed Pasambot and now a very productive land.
Nakasalalay dito yung ating tagumpay.
PDI national staff had contributed much to the success of the people's organizations. The organizing department monitors the daily development from the field. The administration and finance department professionally documented financial inflows and outflows and prepared reports for funding agencies. The Management Information Services continues to publish the newsletter Usaping Bayan. It also continues to upgrade its audio, photo, and video database for campaigns and educational purposes. And last but not the least, the Program Development and Monitoring Department cuts across all the departments to fine-tune reports to be submitted to the Executive Director.
Huwag tayong binitin sa bigis dahil pag may bumitin sa atin, umpisa na ito ng kahinaan. Yun lamang po at mabuhay.
The historical account in this documentary was presented in broad stroke, sidestepping the nitty-gritty of its day-to-day operation. The heavy load of PDI's daily operation lies on the shoulder of an intelligent, passionate, and dynamic woman, PDI's Executive Director, Ms. Aurea Miklat Teves. Madam Ria, as she is fondly called by friends and colleagues alike, has spent a good part of her life building PDI and its network of POs and partner NGOs. She is the inspiration at the national office and in the field. She is the ever-reliable kasangga of the farmers.
Si Ria, hindi alam ng marami ang tunay na arkitekto ng community.
Ria was the true architect of the Agrarian Reform Community, or ARC, a successful component of the government's Agrarian Reform Program. After 15 momentous years, land tenure improvement has caught up with century-old landlessness. Economic support services continue to fight poverty. Education campaigns cut down exploitative illiteracy. Hundreds of people's organizations united by a dream of seeing farmers owning the land they till. In the womb of this rural setting, midwifed by hope, the Project Development Institute was able to help the dreams of a few thousand farmers come true. Admittedly, the humble accomplishments of PDI is just a drop in the bucket. Nevertheless, the impact of PDI on the lives of the farmer beneficiaries is not only measured by the economic yardstick or the number of cloas distributed, but by the quality of the future it has brought to a hopeless people 15 years ago.
Our organizing and management capability has been proven. PDI has done its part and is continuing to do so. We are asking you to do your part. For the second time, PDI is again ready to expand into millions. Millions of farmer beneficiaries. Millions of students and scholars. To bring them new hope, burning like candle in the dark.
Nais niya ay lumipad doon sa tugato. Isang araw noon ang ibo'y kinuha. Siya ay nanlaban hanggang makawala. At sa kaniyang paglipad, siya'y tuwang-tuwa. At kanyang ipinagbunyi ang kanyang paglaya. Dapat mainuha na kailangan ng laya upang lumigaya. Tulad ng mga ibon na kapagpasya, kung hangad mong lumaya, kailangan lumaban ka. Sa sanga ng isang puno ay may nadakip isang munting ibon pagkarikit-rikit. Sa malagintong hawla siya isinilid. Masasarap na pagkain sa kanya hinahati. Ngunit nakapagtataka, siya'y laging malungkot. Sa araw at gabi, piyok ng piyok. Ang bigay na pagkain di yata malunok. Nais niya ay lumipad doon sa tugato. Isang araw noon ang ibo'y kinuha. Siya ay nanlaban hanggang makawala. At sa kaniyang at siya'y tuwang-tuwa at kanyang ipinagbunyi ang kanyang paglaya. Dapat mahinuha